Welcome to your new Subaru. This video should help go over specific steering wheel controls, radio controls, and climate controls to help take care of most of the questions that you have within the first couple weeks of ownership. If you have additional questions, you can always consult your owner's manual, or you can take advantage of Baxter Subaru's Love Encore program, where you can schedule a time to meet one-on-one to go over specific questions you have about your car and get more in-depth with technology and features in your vehicle. Let's start with steering wheel controls. On the right-hand side, you've got cruise controls. Cruise is the button in the upper right. It looks like a car with a speedometer. When you press it, this entire middle display changes, and you'll also notice a logo in the lower left-hand side that looks just like the button you've pressed. Again, it's a car with a speedometer. Once you have cruise control turned on, you then need to set a speed. Click down on Set on this middle toggle here, and it will display the speed you have it set at with the dashes down below. You can increase and decrease speed by 1 mile an hour with each click, and if you press and hold up or down, it will change to the nearest 5 mile an hour increment. That's different from previous Subarus if you're used to that. You can decrease and increase your following distance with these arrows here. The distance is represented by white bars in the middle display. Each white bar technically represents 1 second's worth of time, but it works more like a car length when you're moving at highway speeds. The button in the lower right that looks like a steering wheel with some arrows on either side of it will turn on your adaptive steering. In the upper right hand corner, you'll see a logo that looks just like the button that you've pressed. When white lines appear on either side and that white steering wheel logo turns green, you'll notice it'll take a more active role in steering to help keep you between the lines. When you make lane changes, it will allow you to cross the lines, and then once you've established yourself in the new lane, it will kick back on automatically. It's important to note that the steering, the distance controls, and the set and resume features only work when cruise control is turned on. The steering cannot be turned on without the cruise control. If you're used to previous Subarus, the left-hand pad will have changed the most for you. As opposed to having buttons that pull back on the lower left-hand side of the steering wheel that change the center display, those controls have now been worked into this pad here on the left. Volume is now controlled with the plus and minus down here. Voice commands can be activated from here. You can press this and tell the car to do certain commands. You can answer and hang up the phone from these two buttons here. You'll notice the hang up the phone button also has a speaker with an X next to it. This doubles as a mute button and will cancel any voice commands as well. The middle here is where the buttons that were previously on the lower left have moved. Up and down will now change different radio information and fuel economy information, even tire pressure monitors in this middle screen here. The small eye next to it, when a yellow or a red eye shows up in this middle screen, you can press this small white eye and it will read out a description of why that light is on. On the top edge, you can change tracks left and right here, and source will toggle between your different audio sources: FM, AM, satellite, Bluetooth, and so on. On the back side of the steering wheels, you'll notice there's a plus sign on this side and a minus sign on the other. These can pull back towards you and do paddle shifting operations. The Starlink multimedia screen can really be easily thought of as 3 separate screens, even though it's all encased in one. The top section here will always remain with your clock, your outside temperature, and whatever you have on this lower display. You can change it by pressing the arrows on the left and right hand sides of this screen. Whatever screen you leave it on is the one it'll stay on. At the very bottom, your climate controls will also always stay here. You can increase and decrease your fan speed, turn on and off the air conditioning. You can change the heated seats by just touching these parts of the screen. A separate screen no longer comes up, which is nice. If you touch the middle part down here, more controls will come up. You now have slider switches for temperatures on either side. Recirculate, max AC is also in here. You can change where the air is going. You can even sync both temperatures to make them both go off the driver's temperature. Or my favorite setting, which is auto. Auto essentially works like your home's thermostat, where you set a temperature and it will do the rest. Also, because it's just going off of the temperature, instead of having to go into the touchscreen itself, you can now use the physical buttons on the left and right hand sides to change the temperature, and it will do the rest. If I need it warmer, I can go up and it will change where the air is going. If I need it colder, I can press down on the blue arrow and it will increase the fan speed and make it colder to get me to that new colder temperature. You can also turn the whole system off from here. Along the bottom part of the main portion of the radio screen, these are always going to display regardless of what's here in the middle, whether it's maps, radio. See how these always show up down along the bottom? The home button is essentially your easiest way back to this main screen. Vehicle icon over here will bring up a shortcut for vehicle settings, driving assistance, and a few others. You can also turn on and off the auto start stop system from this button down here. When the green light is on, then the auto start stop function that turns off the engine occasionally at stoplights will be on. And if you press it to turn it off, it'll work like every other car you've had. It's important to note that every time the car turns on, automatic start stop will always be on with it. On the other side, you can manage devices from here for Bluetooth settings, and you can also do Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly from here. It will walk you through the pairing process on that. The far right, you can create driver profiles. If you have multiple drivers in the car and you all have your own settings that you want them to be at for radio and such, you can save them with different profiles from this page. Otherwise, if it's just you driving, it's not a bad idea just to leave it on default. The rest of the icons may be in slightly different places because at the end of the day, if you press and hold on this, once it shrinks, you can move things around on the screen. So if you want to rearrange things, you certainly can, but if you're looking for certain things that I'm showing on this screen and it's not in the same spot, it's just because you can move them. We'll start with radio. Your presets down below essentially just can be saved from whatever's playing up top. FM, AM, or satellite stations. And you can do any combination of presets down here. So if you want this AM station saved, you would just press and hold. You'll hear a long beep, and then you'll see the station number show up down below. Skipping between presets is easy enough, but you also have arrows on the steering wheel that I showed you before that can change between the radio presets left and right. You also have up to 18 presets with this system. If your vehicle is equipped with maps, it will always show you where you're at. Pressing the compass will change the orientation of the map to a 3D view, a bird's eye view that follows you, or a bird's eye view that follows a fixed north, south, east, west axis. You can click on menu down here to bring up more options. Under search, you can type in the name of a place, or you can go through different categories up here as well. You can also press and hold on a spot on the map, and then click go, and it will give you directions to the spot that you've dropped. You can also give directions by voice command. The voice command button is on the steering wheel next to the phone controls on the left-hand side. Tap it, your voice assistant will come up and ask you what you'd like to do, and you can say things like, navigate to 908 North 102nd Street, Omaha, Nebraska. It will then figure out what you've said, hopefully decipher it right, and give you directions to the desired location. Media essentially takes care of anything that isn't AM, FM, or satellite radio. If you have USB drive full of music, your Bluetooth music off of your phone, an iPod or an iPhone, or even an auxiliary cord plugged in down below, It's all accessed under media as opposed to radio. The phone icon will bring up the phone screen. If you have a Bluetooth device connected, your recent calls, favorites, and phone book will show up here. You can also add more devices down here and choose between those devices from here, but you'll notice that it walks you through the pairing process. Each step is displayed here on the screen. To make calls for the phone, you can either go in and under phone book you can find who you'd like to call, or again you can use your voice assistant. Press the voice command button on the steering wheel and then ask it to call somebody in your contacts. As long as you say the name as it appears in your contacts, it should be able to give them a ring. When you have an incoming phone call, regardless of what you're doing on the screen, it will automatically show an answer and a dismiss button on the main screen. You can also dismiss the call and answer the phone call from the steering wheel controls I showed you before. If your new Subaru has a black strip along the top section here, then you have the driver monitoring system. To set up the driver monitoring system, go to Settings. Along the top part of Settings, go to Car Settings. And the fourth one down, you'll see Driver Monitoring System. From here, you can click on Register User, pick a number. At this point, you want to make sure that you're set for your seat and your side mirrors, because it will remember those for you now. Look forward out the windshield until you hear a beep. Then you can type in a name for yourself. You'll want to press the little gray X over here to start over. And then select an icon here that you'd like to show up as well. And when you get in the car, the radio screen should say your name and hello and the icon that you have set up. You can set up to 5 different users here. This system, when it's set up, will detect the driver sitting in the seat and automatically move the seat and side mirrors to that position when it detects their face. Sometimes it doesn't quite get it, and it's usually because you've got sunglasses or a hat, or certain lighting conditions can throw off the system as well. So it's not 100%, but because it's mostly for memory seats for the front driver's seat and side mirrors, at the end of the day, if you have your driver memory set up on the door instead, you should still be able to get to that without relying on this. Even without having a registered user, this system will still detect the driver's eyes and see where they're looking to warn them if they're not paying enough attention and if they need to keep their eyes on the road. Remember, Baxter Subaru offers the Love Encore program, so we can go over questions on your new Subaru if you've had it for less than 60 days. Thank you for purchasing your new car from Baxter Subaru.